Well, good morning and welcome to church. It's going to be a little bit different today, but I don't know, as you watched that video, if you identified with any of those shapes or colors. As you walk through that, hopefully you will, but you're going to hear a little bit more about that today. It's going to feel a little bit different today, but we are getting ready to embark on a journey together over the next several weeks, and really starting with it today with this title of the message is I said this, you heard that. And so very similar to the game we played, I think there are times in life that people say things to us or we say things and then we're heard differently. And I don't know about you, but this happens all the time in my marriage. Like, for example, one of the things I do with Cheryl all the time is when we go out to eat something, just so you know, I'm the spring in that video right there. But but when I go out there, when we go out to eat, like I'm all about trying something new. Cheryl orders the same thing. Anybody like that? Like order the same exact thing, like you never stray from it. Orders the same thing. Cheryl always orders something new. I always want her to try something that I have gotten because it's so good and it's new, and I always want her to try this. And so I will say, "Hey, will you try this?" And she says, "No, I don't really want to." And so I'm like, "No, seriously, try it." And she's like, "No, I don't really want to." And here's what I hear. Here's what I hear when she says no to that. I hear, I really want to try that, but I don't want to eat your food, so you go ahead. And what she really means is, no, I don't want to try it, okay? Like, literally, I don't want to try that. She gets angry with me. Like, stop asking me. I don't want to try that. And so we do that all the time. And, it happens all the time. And men, we do that because we've been burnt before, right? Because you, ask your wife, you're like, "Hey, do you mind if I go play golf with my buddies?" And your wife's like, no, go ahead. Which really means, are you serious? I thought you were going to hang out with me and take me to dinner. That's what it means. And so we try to, but really what she really meant was, no, I'd prefer you spend time with me. But she says, so we say things and we hear different things in communication. And so really what I want to talk to you this morning is about how to avoid miscommunication. And communication is not just about what is said, but it's also about what is heard. And when you said this, I heard this, and that happens all the time. I'll tell Cheryl, even in all aspects of our lives, I'm like, "Hey, we're, finances, hey, we're running a little bit close this week." What Cheryl hears is, "Oh my word, we're bankrupt and it's all my fault." That's what she hears. And then on the flip side of that, she says, "Boy, I really would like to go to Florida." What I hear is like, you better make this happen. So we say that all the time. And I don't know about you, but I don't know how many times have you been embarrassed or reacted poorly or made crazy assumptions or gotten angry or lost friendships because of some kind of miscommunication? And so, and here's the thing. I think that our communication is getting more and more difficult as a culture. And I want to talk to you this morning a little bit about what Scripture teaches and what it says about communication, how we're supposed to communicate with one another. One of the areas that it's gotten more complicated is through social media and texting, right? And so texting has made that even more difficult because I think sometimes you can send a text and it gets misrepresented or gets misunderstood. And I have an example of that. This was I have a picture here. This was actually a text message. I don't know, maybe you've seen this before. I think we have a picture somewhere. No? No picture? Hold on. Okay, so I think we have a picture. When we get to that, but I'll set this up. Basically, it's a text message between a mother and a son, and the mother was trying to send a text message to her son, and I'll just go ahead and read through it. If the picture comes up, you can kind of follow along, but it says, basically, the mom sent a text that said, to her son that said, "Your great aunt just passed away, LOL." And her son was like, "Why is that funny?" And the mom says, "It's not funny, David. What do you mean?" And the son says, "Mom, LOL means laughing out loud." And mom says, "Oh my goodness, I sent that to everyone. I thought it meant lots of love." I know somebody here's going, "I thought the same thing." Kathy Clucker admitted that this week. She's like, "That's what I used to think it meant." But the purpose of communication, obviously, is to convey information from one person to the other. And through our choice of words, we exchange concepts and emotions and thoughts and opinions. And unfortunately, miscommunication is common when the listener fails to understand what is said. Dale Carnegie says that 90% of all management problems can be summed up as miscommunication. And so miscommunication has caused all kinds of problems in the world. I want to look at Ephesians chapter 4:29, and we're going to hear this scripture over the next week. I'll be starting a new series called My Big Fat Mouth. So we're going to be walking through some of this for the next couple of weeks. So you'll want to come back next week as we dive into this a little bit further. But really what I want to talk about this morning is more around what drives us to communicate the way we do. Ephesians 4:29 says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." Don't let any unwholesome talk. Now, I don't know about you, but when I grew up, unwholesome talk was bad words at your house. And at my house growing up, we were not allowed to say bad words. And I knew that growing up, but then I went to public school, and I came home and I had learned some words from my friends. And I remember one particular instance where I came home, and one of the words I had learned was, "That's bull." I didn't even complete the rest of it. I was like, "Oh, that's bull." And let me tell you, that did not go well. But obviously, it's more than just about word choice. It's far more than that. And unwholesome in this passage is actually a Greek word. The Greek word for it is sapros, which literally means, when you translate that Greek word, it literally means rotten, putrid, poor quality, bad, unfit for use, and worthless. That's what, when you read through that passage and you hear that, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. What Paul is saying there to the Ephesians is basically, that's rotten. Don't let anything rotten or putrid or poor quality or bad or unfit for use or worthless come out of your mouth, because words are powerful and they can create confidence. They can start relationships, and they can lose relationships, and they can land and lose jobs, and they can do all things. Proverbs 18:21 says that a tongue can bring death or life, and those who love to talk will reap the consequences. And I believe, I don't know about you, but I believe that the enemy will use our words and use the way that we speak to one another and use the way that we communicate to one another, even inside the church, maybe more so inside the church than anywhere else, for evil. And it's not just the words that we speak to each other face to face, but it's also the words that we speak about each other behind each other's backs. Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever had somebody say, "Well, you should hear what so-and-so said about you"? Anybody experienced that? Had that actually just this week. And it's always like, oh, I don't want that to be said about me. I don't want to be viewed like that, or whatever that is. And so it's incredibly hurtful. And so you have probably at some point in time in your life felt the sting of careless comments or words that have spoken just off the cuff or have been said to you or about you. If you're like me, you've probably said some things that you wish you hadn't said. And in a moment of frustration or anger or a stressful situation, you've reacted or said something that you wish you could take back. But the thing about words is, once they're out there, they're out there. They're hard to take back in, aren't they? You can't suck those back in. And it's difficult. Proverbs 13:3 says this: "Those who control their tongue will have a long life, and opening your mouth can ruin everything." And if that verse is true, I probably don't have very long to live. Maybe not. But I've said things and I've done things that I wish I could take back in, but you can't. And so that's why in Ephesians it says, "Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." And our communication is meant to benefit someone. It's meant, when you say things and you speak words, it should be to benefit someone. And we must learn to communicate in a language if we're going to lead others well and we're going to have solid relationships in our lives. And there's great benefit in knowing how to effectively communicate with people. And so this applies to all of our relationships. And I don't know what you're thinking of when, I've been meeting with a lot of married couples lately. And, one of the things that I find is there's this breakdown in communication. Like, we cannot communicate as a family. We cannot communicate without screaming and yelling, or we can't communicate without somebody hearing something different and flying off the handle or whatever that is. And I don't know if it's whether it's in your marriage or whether it's in your dating relationships or your work relationships or your friends or your parents or your in-laws or your parents. Maybe you're here as a student this morning and you're like, man, my parents just do not listen to me. They don't understand what I'm trying to say to them. When I say this, they hear something completely different. So how do we do it? How do we learn to control our tongue? How do we learn to speak each other's languages? Because here's the thing. Here's a clue. I don't know if you figured this out, but we are not all wired the same. I don't know if that's like words of wisdom. Obviously, we know that, right? In fact, Psalms 139, 13 through 14 says this: "You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it." And I think sometimes you look at yourself and you try to step out and you think, man, why do I do this? Why do I act the way? Why do I say the things? Why are things said about me? But here's the thing I want you to understand is that we are made. Each one of us, all of us in here are made differently, and we are all created and wired. You may be completely wired differently from your spouse or for your parents or your kids or whatever that is, but we are all complexly made and wonderfully complex. And we have all been created to be these complex individuals. We all come from different set of instructions. We all have a different set of instructions. And if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever said this, if you've ever said these phrases like, why in the world would they think that? Or why would they say that? Why would they act that way? Have you ever said that about anybody? Like, it just doesn't register because to us, it's completely foreign. And I think that is part of what we want to cover this morning. And what I want to talk to you about is really just temperaments. And that's what we're going to share. It's going to be a little bit different, but I believe that our temperaments are the way that God made us, and temperaments are different than personalities. Temperaments is you hear and you speak out of your own temperament. You hear and speak out of your own temperament. And there's a difference between temperament and personality. A personality is a snapshot of your behavior or your feelings or your emotions, but your temperament is what you speak out of. And your temperament is kind of the why behind the what. And so what we're going to do, and in this class that we're offering this fall in our Grow Group, it's I said this, you heard that. It's a class that you can take. It's a 6-week class. And I'm going to give you just a little snippet of what that class is going to be like and how you can dig into this a little bit forward. But basically, a long time ago, there was a guy named Hippocrates that actually kind of did some work, and kind of in that time they didn't really understand, but they actually thought it was physical characteristics of your body, like blood and the juices and all that in your body. But they came up with basically 4 temperaments, and there's a 4 temperament color chart. And so the first one, the 4 temperament is this. And so we have 4 colors. You have yellow, red, green, and blue. And so the top 2 temperaments, the yellow and the top 2 colors, the red and the yellow, are your extroverts. These are people that are they're extroverts. They're out there. It's not necessarily that they just enjoy people. They enjoy being out. They live their temperament outwardly. And so the yellow and the sanguine yellow and the choleric red, and then the bottom 2, the melancholic blue and the phlegmatic green, are the bottom 2 are more introverted temperaments. And so the bottom 2, so your temperament determines the words you speak. For example, yellow often speaks with animated, fun, and people-oriented words. Okay? Guess who's a yellow? Red often speaks with bold, confident, and controlling words, and blue often speaks with very detailed, judgmental, and thoughtful words, and green temperaments often speak with the easygoing, unenthusiastic, and very patient words. These are the core motivators that determine the words that you use and the words that you speak in your relationships today. Your temperament dictates also the words you hear. So yellow, if you're yellow up there on the chart, extrovert, the needs chart, the yellows need acceptance, approval, attention, and affection. Red needs loyalty, a sense of control, appreciation, credit for work. Blue is safety, sensitivity, support, space, silence. The blues are like, hey, I need my space, I need my safety, I need sensitivity. Green's like, hey, green is harmony, worthiness, lack of stress, respect. Every word or behavior is motivated through these core needs. And so the words that the colors that you see, I kind of went through those pretty quick, but here's the reason why. I want to invite somebody to join me. And so Angie Courtwright's going to come up here and join me. And so there's a reason. I want to give you a little bit, while Angie's coming, I want to give you a little bit of background on why I asked Angie to come up here. So Angie and I have been friends for a very, 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 very long time, right? How long have we been friends? I don't know. 100
well over a couple decades.
A couple decades. So Angie and I have been friends, and we've worked together at the church for a long time in different things. And so if you don't know Angie Courtwright, Angie actually leads our missions group and actually leads our missions team and has done a great job with Mission Salem. I think it's on. Is it on? There we go. So Mission Salem, and does awesome stuff around the church, and so has served on our church board, has served here at the church for a long time. And so I kind of want to give you a little bit of background on why I asked Angie to come up. And we're going to talk through this a little bit. I want Angie to share kind of her perspective. But here's the thing, and I want to be very, very transparent. As your pastor, I'm always wanting to be incredibly transparent, because I think as we sit here this morning, I think you think, well, hey, that pastor's got it all figured out, or I wish I was, I don't know, maybe you don't wish that, but here's the thing. As your pastor, I don't always get this right. And I have said things and done things to people that are not correct, and Angie was the recipient of some of that. And so we had a conversation. Angie, there was a text message she sent, and just again, the text message thing was a miscommunication to kind of set the tone. I'd received a text message from Angie. I read it completely wrong. I reacted completely horribly and had a conversation, picked up the phone, called Angie. We had a conversation. It ended with her crying and me feeling worthless. And a lot of things were said that out of my mouth, particularly, that I wish I could take back, but I couldn't. And so I wanted to give, but here's the thing, and here's why I wanted to be that transparent this morning. I wanted Angie to kind of share, so just share a little bit about your take on that. Like, I know you wanted to throat punch me, and that's okay. So talk to me just a little about where you were from with that.
Well, first off, we would be here all day if we talked about our history.
Right.
Because your family means so much to my
right.
family, and we go back generational.
Right.
From when Cheryl and I were little, the Shannon horses.
Sure.
Your dad baptized me.
Everybody likes my dad. Not
my
so much
babies.
Me, yeah.
You dedicated my grandbaby.
Right.
I love this guy.
Yeah.
But not on that day.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, so, communication 101, think twice before you send a text or an email. It will never be received the way it was sent.
Yeah.
And I was in a hurry. I was trying to do 10 things at once. And I'm the personality that has all the thoughts popping around, and I'm trying to dot all my I's. And yes, I shot off a text, and basically all I wanted to say was, when you get a second, I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
And that's not how it came out.
No. And that was not how I read it. And to give some, and I think this is just the way the enemy works. I'd had an incredibly stressful day that day. And it was kind of, I don't know if any of you are like me, but I have kind of a bonfire personality. Like you suppress all of that stuff and everything's good on the outside, and then it just takes one thing, and then the spark that, and so Angie's text was kind of the spark that caused me to have this incredibly horrible conversation with Angie. So
you called me.
Yeah.
When I answered the phone, I was like, I thought we were getting ready to have a happy conversation. I was like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
And And I think your words will let me tell you.
Yeah, very much so.
And then you told me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was in shock because you were definitely upset. I mean,
Yeah.
it was genuine. You felt that.
Right.
And I couldn't understand why you felt that because that's not what I meant.
Right. And you were genuinely hurt.
Yes.
By my words.
And
angry.
yeah. And like you said, the enemy, first of all, he knows our deepest fears. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like he's just lurking.
Sure.
And he's got an easy job. He can sit back and just wait for us to be human and mess up, and then he can attack. And you used the word disappointed. And when we get to the red, you'll see that. Yeah. Letting people down or failure is one of my biggest fears. Mm-hmm. And that was the word disappointment that just stood out. You were disappointed. I heard God was disappointed. Sure. That I had let him down.
Right.
And you said something along the lines.
I said lots of things.
I don't want to call you out. I don't want to be the person
it's all good.
that ripped the pastor apart.
No, let's do it. Let's pull it out there.
You said that you expected more. Well, I'm a red.
How? See, I told you it was bad.
And
is this awkward for anyone? No. We're enjoying it. Yeah.
What I heard was the T-shirts that everyone wears that says "You belong here."
Yeah.
I heard the opposite.
Sure.
Like, God's done with you. You
right.
finally did it.
Sure.
You done ticked off the pastor. That's the last.
Yeah.
It's the last straw. God can forgive a lot.
That's really what you want to come across as a pastor. Is someone to walk away feeling that, right? That's what you're after. But so kind of fast forward a little bit. We part of just so you know. So there's a test that you take with this. I said this, you heard that. If you jump in the class, you'll be able to take the test, and it'll kind of help you understand what color you are. And so just for me, I am actually yellow-red, and I'll tell you what that means. And you are?
Red-blue. Sorry, red-blue.
You're red-blue. Okay, so she's red-blue, I'm yellow-red. And so here's what that, so one of the perspective is, there were two perspectives that I want to make sure that you understand. When you have a broken relationship, when you have somebody that you have there are two perspectives. You are either the offender or you are the offended, right? Like you have either been hurt or you have been the one doing the hurting. And there are two things that there are things that have to happen on both sides of that, right? On this side of it, I needed to say, Angie, I'm sorry. And I believe I did that really, really quickly. But here's the problem. Because I'm a yellow, you'll see that as one of my characteristic traits. We say that very easily. Yellows say that very easily. I'm sorry. It comes natural for us. It's just part of who we were wired to be. And so I was able to actually realize very quickly that I was like, man, you handled that horribly. That couldn't have gone any worse. And so I reached out to Angie, shot her a message, I'm sorry, let's talk. I'm so sorry, should not have reacted that way. It was silence.
I didn't want to talk.
It wasn't an immediate like, oh, hey, no problem, and I think that's the other side of it, because there's a process that you had to go through for forgiveness and to get over that offense, right? So talk to me about what that looked like for you.
Yeah, and part of that I think also is, in the book it talks about your upbringing too, and your parenting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, in our family we avoid difficult situations. Just don't talk about it and it'll go away. And that's I needed some distance, and I didn't come back to church for about 3 weeks.
Right.
And the first time I came back, I sat in the back, cried, and snuck out.
Yeah.
And so, it was a longer process.
Yep, it was.
And it wasn't that I didn't forgive you or that I didn't want to forgive you.
Right.
I just couldn't make it go away inside.
Yeah, because I think when you're an offender sometimes and you do something dumb like I've done, and I probably will continue to do, but maybe not with the Lord's help, I think our inclination is, I said I'm sorry, so why aren't you over it? right? Like let's move on, let's move, and that's part of our personality. So I want to talk just a little bit about, real quick in the time that we have left, Angie. So you took the test. Talk to me about how you felt taking the test, and like what were your, just your experience with it. Because I know you said some stuff to me yesterday that was like, okay, I was kind of hoping it was something else, but go ahead.
Right. When you're answering all these questions, you're tempted to answer the way you think other people expect you to answer. Mm-hmm. And what I found is sometimes what I was answering didn't really match what I felt, which is, I think, why I got red and blue, because they sound one's an extrovert and one's an introvert. We're complicated, right?
Right. And so just a reminder, so the red is, I think I lost it. You have that, Angie? So
I've got some. I liked some of the strengths, and the weaknesses stink.
So here's the thing. The thing about Angie and I is we actually share a color. You'll have a primary temperament. So my primary temperament is yellow, which means that I show emotion openly. I have high energy, enthusiasm. I'm people-oriented. I apologize quickly. I'm the spring on the video. That's me. I speak the language of fun and excitement, and I'm just all about fun and that type of thing. Some of my yellow weaknesses are that I'm a compulsive talker. That's why we're going over today. I get angry easy. These are some of the other weaknesses of my temperament, is that I tend to be self-centered. And this one's a weakness, but I really don't think that it is. I never grow up. So I'm not sure that that's a weakness. But Sharon, so talk to me about your blue side of you.
Blue or the red?
The blue, because that's different.
My secondary, yeah.
That's your secondary, so talk about that.
So some of the strengths were empathetic, self-sacrificing. I liked those. Low self-image, fear of failure were the weaknesses.
Sure. So when I spoke, that nailed right to your blue, went right to your blue temperament. Yes, okay.
But your yellow basically infuriates the red in me.
That's great. But what's weird is we have the same kind of red. And so we share that color. And so the red strengths, I don't know what you picked, Angie, for the red strengths.
Dynamic leader.
Yes.
Adventurous.
I have that one as well.
Quick to action.
Mine were a dynamic leader. I'm ability to correct wrongs. I can take charge when needed. I'm compulsive, and I have a compulsive need for change. Which is interesting. And so that's your red. So that's a color we share. So talk to me about your blue weaknesses.
The weaknesses were the red or the blue?
Blue. Talk to me about the blue, because you're blue.
Well, I only marked down a couple, so I'd have to flip through. But the low self-image and the fear of failure were the blue weaknesses.
The big blue ones. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then talk to me about the ones that you had for red that were your weaknesses.
And I've been told this since I was 2. Bossy, impatient, quick-tempered. Yep.
And since we shared that color, I picked some weaknesses too for the red. I had bossy down too, Angie. So really we were both bossing each other on the phone that day. We come on too strong. We may be rude or tactless. And the last one that I really hate, but I know is probably true, reds think they know everything. So that's just really, so out of all of that, I don't know, Angie, if that has helped you understand kind of maybe even me and where we've come from and our relationship. But I want you to, the reason why I wanted, and it's super awkward when you want to call somebody up and especially to say, yeah, I'm the idiot that really said stuff that was really wrong and hurtful. But I think but there's such a message here too for Angie. I think many of you probably have had people say really mean and hurtful things to you. And so what would you say to those people, Angie, that are here today that are maybe where you were? What piece of advice would you give them?
Well, try to put it back into perspective.
Okay.
For me, I internalized it, and it grew bigger inside. Mm-hmm. It was an argument. It was a dumb argument.
Yeah.
But inside, it was so much more to me.
Sure.
And prayer. So I spent the next few weeks doing a lot of soul searching myself and where I was at, and just kind of facing those fears.
Sure.
And
well, I appreciate it. And I'm so grateful, Angie, that you're willing to come up and share. And I wanted you guys to see that, because I think sometimes when I'm up here speaking, it's not real life. And the fact of the matter is we live in these kind of relationships. And really, we have a couple of choices. And I think that the reason that Angie and I can still, we get through that and it's tough, it's because we both love Jesus. And we want that primary in our lives. And we're willing to look at the things that we can do to be better and to grow. And that's what growing is. We just finished a message series on what's next. This is what growing looks like, is you walk through these difficult times in your life, and you walk through miscommunications, and you walk through things that are said and done, and you say, I'm sorry, and then you say, I forgive you, and then you end up in a better place on the other side of it. So thank you, Angie.
well, and just to add to that, I think we live in a society now that is so quick to give up on relationships.
Absolutely.
Even friendships.
Yep.
We get hurt, we get mad, we walk away. And my husband asked me just the week after that, when it became Sunday morning or Saturday night.
Nate's like an ex-Marine, so I was a little bit scared.
He did pick his keys up and tried to leave the house that night.
Yeah.
But he loves Trent too. But he asked that Saturday night, are we going somewhere else? And I said, no, this is my home. This is my church. And I think that would be my piece of advice.
Yeah.
Don't be so quick to walk away.
Yep, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, love you. Wanted you to hear a little bit of that. One of the things that I want you to know, and here in a minute, I'm going to show a video, and it'll give you a little bit better perspective on this class that we're offering, and you'll have an opportunity to kind of look at that and it'll give you a little bit better perspective. But I know, here's the thing. I know what you're thinking is, well, is there one temperament that's better than the other? And the fact that it is that there's not. Ephesians 2:10 says this, for we are God's masterpiece. He created us anew in Christ Jesus so that we can do good things he planned for us long ago. Ephesians 2:10. And the thing is, each one of us, you, me, our temperaments, there's not one better than the other. We are all God's masterpiece. But understanding, I think, how we're wired and how God has made us and how he has woven us together and why some people don't hear what we try to get and why we communicate in different ways are important. And so if you'd like to know more about it, you can watch this. But here's the other thing to remember. When you think, there's been a lot of work done around these studies and that type of thing, and they could tell just through scripture kind of, some experts have said, hey, if you look at the green or the yellow, Peter was probably a yellow. He was the guy always, talking and cutting people's ears off. That was Peter. Paul was more of a choleric. He was more power and control, that red. And Moses, they feel like he was more of a phlegmatic, the language of calm and harmony. God was ready to destroy the Israelites, and Moses was like, hey, blot my name out too, Thomas, he needed answers and proof. And so, but when you look at the life of Jesus, he was really the balance of all of these. He was the perfect balance in who we need to strive to be like and to understand our temperaments. And so I know this is a little bit different message this morning, but I just want to leave you with Ephesians 4:29. It says, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Every word that you use is a word that you will choose. And so we're going to walk through this. We're going to dig a little bit deeper over the next few weeks, and hopefully you find that interesting. But take a look at the video, and then Jeremy's going to come up and wrap us up here at the end. Thanks for being here.
This is about understanding people to the core. Figuring out what you said and what they heard and eliminating this gray area in between. By you understanding your authentic wiring, you'll become the very best version of yourself. What we will be learning about is temperaments, which is the why behind your personality. I've invited some people to join me.
My name is Tony. I'm 26.
I'm Andrew, 25.
I'm Jeremy. I'm 40.
I'm Leslie. It's none of your business what my age is.
Remember, our strengths and weaknesses are choices. We're going to recreate real-life situations and conflicts. Learning the temperaments will change everything. All of your relationships, every decision you make, and every word you speak. This is going to be a fun journey.